News this hour of Tennessee's planned announcement later today of the switch from Nike back to Adidas, which will begin next year for the 2026-27 academic year. Tennessee will wear Nike this year, so that news coming out. It's been anticipated. We've discussed it with our next guest a number of times, including when he was on last week. Austin Price of Volquest.com joins us. Austin, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you?
Very well. We're doing very well, and this has been a poorly kept secret at this point, right, that Tennessee was going to be making this move. It was a matter of when it would be announced, and it looks like that will be later today. But your thoughts as you've known this would be coming or expected this to come for Tennessee to switch back to Adidas next year?
I mean, I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of people have known that this was the direction this was heading for the last couple of months. Nike got Tennessee on kind of, sweetheart, mom-and-pop type deal, 11, 12 years ago, 2014. And I think when renegotiations came around, they didn't offer a whole lot different than what they offered 10 or 11 years ago. And Adidas wanted to make Tennessee its signature brand. And, financially, I think that this is going to be a really big move for Tennessee. And I think that's the decision to go there. I will say this, too. I think, and today, if this was 20 years ago, everybody things with the power T on it were, whatever your brand deal is. I mean, you got Roback, Peter Millar, Johnny O. You can get things with the power T on it, in literally just about every, brand out there. So, I mean, I think the whole, what brand do you wear is a bit overblown. I know some fans love to go buy the Coach's shirt and stuff. I get that, but if you really want quality, Tennessee apparel, you got a number of different options. It's not a one-stop shop anymore like it was, years and years ago. So I think, financially, whatever makes the most sense for Tennessee would make sense to me, especially in this arms race that is the NIL era for money and rev share. I think that's probably what you'll hear a lot of the pitch, when Tennessee announces this coming up. But, again, I think that this is something that the administration did not take lightly. I think that they saw reaction out there on social media several months back when all this started to get, bannered back and forth and talked about. And I think they still just felt like, the decision had to be what's in the best interest of Tennessee from a monetary standpoint when it comes to the NIL space.
Do you see Tennessee switch to Adidas producing some early positive returns for Tennessee?
I don't know. We'll see. I talked about this. We taped our podcast earlier today for tomorrow, and I talked about this on there. When you talk about NIL and it helping in NIL, your first reaction is going to be, okay, well, the recruiting class, if you're ranked 10th, next year you better be ranked better than 10th. Otherwise, we're not seeing the results. And I get that, and I would tell you that I would expect to see that if I were a fan as well. But it also goes back to roster retention. I think it's more than just recruiting. It is roster retention. If your roster retention is really, really good because, you've got some extra NIL deals through your brand partner to keep people like David Sanders or Peyton Lewis or Arion Carter or whoever around for another year, I think that is a huge checkbox, for Tennessee in this space. And so I think that's the biggest thing is maybe you see the results in recruiting. I don't think you're ever going to have a kid come out and go, yeah, I picked Tennessee because they're Adidas. Just like to this point, you've ever had a kid say, yeah, I picked so-and-so because they're with Nike or Under Armour or whatever. But I think what you can see is you'll see Adidas athletes that are affiliated with Tennessee that are getting money to the NIL space and know that, that they were part of their, re-upping with the Vols was NIL related through that space.
We're talking to Austin Price of Volquest.com, and what we're discussing, multiple reports that Tennessee will announce later today that it will switch to Adidas for its next apparel deal with the contract with Nike ending in 2026. How close are we to Tennessee's quarterback battle ending in terms of Josh Heupel identifying a starter for the season opener against Syracuse?
As I've said all week long, I'll be shocked if the starter against Syracuse is not Joey Aguilar. I think Jake Merklinger's performance in the scrimmage last week was a hit. Now, is it possible he flips the script and has an unbelievable performance this Friday and gives the coaches some pause? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the player that, again, the quarterback that performed best in the scrimmage last week was George McIntyre, but Aguilar was solid. He did throw a pick. But I mean, they've all thrown picks in some form or fashion during camp, just like, the infamous Blurgate where Merklinger threw the pick by Colton Hood. So I think Aguilar's experience paves the way to him being the guy. I think it makes, a lot of sense. The question is when would Josh Heupel announce such a thing? I'm not sure he announces it anytime soon. They'll go into mock game week next week. And I think, sometime between next Monday and the following Monday, Tennessee will announce its starting quarterback. I just don't imagine him taking this thing all the way up to kickoff. I don't think anybody would believe that it's still an open competition at that point. And again, I just think it lines up for Joey Aguilar to be the quarterback that gets the first shot against Syracuse.
How realistic is it that George McIntyre could take over the number 2 quarterback spot, in your opinion?
Well, I'm kind of under the notion here, and again, this is all my line of thinking, nobody else's. But much like Alabama, I would tell you Ty Simpson's been the starter at Alabama since the spring. But Alabama played this thing out because they wanted to keep Austin Mack engaged. They didn't want to have him, panic and go into the transfer portal during the spring window or anything like that. So they played it a certain way. I think Tennessee will play it a certain way as well. And that way, I would tell you, if Joey Aguilar is the starter, I think Jake Merklinger will be the 2 because they want to keep Jake engaged. But if something happened to Joey Aguilar, I think both would play. I don't think this would just be Jake's job. I think they would play George and Jake and then let them battle it out. I think George has done enough to be the number 2 at this point, but I don't think they'll play it that way because, again, you want to keep the quarterback room all kind of mentally engaged. And I think for a guy like Merklinger, who left spring with everybody and every fan talking about QB1, if he all of a sudden was not at least the number 2, then I think how much does he check out? I think, he would probably get the first crack if something happened to Joey Aguilar, if and when Tennessee announces him as the starter. And if that had to happen and something happened to Joey, then I think both would play because I think, George has earned that right.
Austin Price of Volquest.com. Austin, what is the latest with Boo Carter's standing with the team as best you know?
Really no different than when he kind of returned to the practice field. He still does some individuals. He's not doing a lot of team stuff. Has to do things off the field the right way. Has to continue to check boxes, and we'll see what happens. To this point, it seems like it's just kind of, we're still kind of in the infancy of him being fully back. I mean, he's out there. He's around the team, which is better than it was when he was, just doing stretch, going in the weight room and doing conditioning. He's doing more, but he still has to do certain things off the field and check boxes to be fully back with this team. And we'll see if he's able to get back before the Syracuse game.
Any other positions of interest, position battles, like along the offensive line that interest you going into Friday's second scrimmage of the fall?
Yeah, I mean, I think what does Tennessee elect to do at the guard spot? We know Wendell Moy will be one of them. If Shamu Marab is the starter, Wendell Moy will be the right guard. If Jesse Perry is the starter, then Wendell Moy will be the left guard. At this point, I would tell you it's probably Jesse Perry starting, so it'd be Pendleton at center, Perry at right guard, David Sanders at right tackle, with Moy at left guard, and Lance Hurd at left tackle. Outside of that, not a lot on the offensive side of the ball. I think the running backs kind of are self-explanatory. Going to play multiple. The receivers got to get healthy. I think Braylon Staley's getting there, but I don't think they're going to rush him back after he tweaked the opposite hamstring that he tweaked last year. And then, the defense side of the ball, again, there's a lot of bodies on that side of the ball. How quickly can Jermod McCoy get back? I think that would help things with the whole Boo Carter situation. If all of a sudden McCoy got back quicker, because it gives you options. The more options, the better for the Tim Bank company. So this is a team that's trying to still answer some questions. They can get answered. But again, I think you may have to play some games before you find out the answers to those questions.
Yeah, last thing, is there a target date, do you think, for Jermod McCoy in terms of trying to play a game for Tennessee?
I think in a perfect world, if they could have him back to knock some rust off against ETSU, that would allow him to play against Georgia. If he's not back by ETSU, I don't think they'll toss him out there against Georgia in the first game. I think he would probably come back for the UAB game after Georgia. So those are kind of the two windows I'm looking for. Is he back for ETSU? If he's not back for ETSU, I would venture to say UAB. He's doing a lot more cutting, even though he's not doing team periods while we're out there. Even in the individual stuff when we've been out of practice, he's doing a lot more cutting than I ever imagined he would, with no knee brace either at this stage in the game.
And then, Swain, how could I forget before we go? We're 6 days away. Savion Hiders.
Who did yesterday? Ramon and Will on 104.5 in Nashville.
Yeah.
We can get out of here without having to answer these questions.
Yeah, what am I doing here? Savion Hyder and Tristan Keys. What do we have here?
Hyder's going on the 19th, and Keys doesn't have a date on when he'll do anything. Again, nothing has changed for me outside the fact that Hyder's went so dark on everybody, which is not really a shock. But, I mean, I think, there was a point in time, where he's kind of went dark on the schools as well. I think he's since had, conversations with all the schools recruiting him. And, I don't see him talking. He's not done any talking, not done any interviews. He plays everything super close. You're this close to the finish line. It certainly feels like to me that next Tuesday for him is a day that will be one where most everybody's in the dark. I'd say he'll call the schools that he's picking and not picking maybe within the hour before he announces. And, until then, I'd say everybody will be kind of just guessing. But it's Tennessee and Michigan, and it's total coin flip. And as for Keys, he's yet to announce he'll do anything. He's committed to LSU. I still believe that he's not likely to end up at LSU, and I feel like Tennessee's relationships play a huge role there. So I feel like Tennessee is in as good a spot as they can be for a kid that's not committed to them and committed somewhere else inside the SEC.